Hi, I want to welcome everybody to our webinar that we're having today. I'm really excited to talk about weight loss, and I'm very happy to introduce to you Dr. Monica Vaghela, who is a colleague of mine and a super smart woman who knows all about nutritional supplements and functional medicine. And I'm really happy to have her with us to talk about some functional strategies to help you lose weight. So welcome, Monica.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure what you found in your career is the same thing as mine, is that no matter what people are coming in the door for, the vast majority of them say, I'm really frustrated. I'd like to lose weight. And it's especially as we get into our 40s and 50s in midlife, it seems like it's just so much harder to lose weight than it ever was when we were younger.
Mhm.
And for both you and I coming to the medical field with more of the functional root cause type of an approach, what people are looking for from us is what can they do differently with nutrition and in particular supplements, and basically how they can best lose weight. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. So certainly overweight, obesity, it's ubiquitous. It's just grown over the last couple decades. And I think, what is it now? 2/3 of Americans are overweight and 1/3 are obese, or maybe it's even more than that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, definitely on the rise.
yes, yes. So I find that we get a lot of questions about different kinds of diets, and people are asking us, what do we think about this diet or that diet? And I find that challenging because there's not a lot of literature to prove that one is better than the other. And certainly what works for one person may not work for the next person. So what's your overall opinion of all these different diets that are out there? And how do you in general handle those questions when people ask you, what kind of diet should I eat to help me lose weight?
Yes, that's a very good question because it's not a one size fits all, right? Like a lot of times people are like, oh, I just need to eat more protein, or I need to eat keto, or I need to eat this and I'll lose weight. And it's not that way a lot of times. So you have to kind of look at multiple factors, the person's lifestyle, their belief system. So like some people are vegan because they believe a certain thing. So when it comes to different types of diets, it's a different approach for each individual because it could be based on genetics, it could be based on what their lifestyle specific needs are, their hormones, their digestive health, how inflamed they are. So a lot of times you need to take a look at the whole picture to see what's the best for them.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just so challenging because there's so many things that are on social media. And
Mhm.
people say, well, I read, or podcasts, Dr. So-and-so on their podcast says we should eat this. And I agree with you. Not all diets are right for all people.
Mhm.
Um, so let's dive in and let's talk about nutrition first before we get to supplements. So
Yeah.
tell me what your thoughts are on people tracking macros and then also calories. Uh,
Mhm.
Given that, 20 years ago, we told people it's calories in, calories out. And we know that that's
Right.
not that simple. But
Yeah.
what do you tell people in terms of tracking their food intake with macros and calories?
I think it helps to track it with the macros for sure. Um, you just have to realize that that's not the only answer. Like just because you're tracking your macros doesn't mean you're always going to lose weight. I have patients coming in all the time. I actually have someone that does macro tracking for other people. And then she tracks macros for herself and she's still struggling to lose weight. So I think the answer is we have to dive deeper. We have to see what else could be contributing besides just counting the macros. And same thing with calories, right? So yes, like, you could take a handful of almonds that's 100 calories or a handful of M&Ms that is 100 calories. Yes, like obviously the almonds is the better choice, but it doesn't necessarily mean that counting calories in and out is going to be the answer for weight loss.
Yeah, I love what you said, how you really have to look at some of those other factors, those underlying factors like inflammation or insulin resistance.
Mhm.
Because I agree with you, people can have the perfect macro blend. Let's say the woman's eating, let's say she's eating 1,400 calories a day. Her macros are really good. She's getting healthy fats, lots of protein, not a lot of carbs. But if she's insulin resistant or she's got gut inflammation, then
Mhm.
it's just not going to work.
Right.
And unless you really look for those factors and identify them, your numbers may look good, but you're not going to get the results that you want.
Mhm.
Yeah. I find it interesting too that when people do finally start tracking their macros, a lot of them are really surprised, which you and I kind of know. Well, I think this person's eating too many carbs, for example. And
Mhm.
then when they write it down and then they realize, oh, I've been getting 300 grams of carbs in a day. Like, well, maybe that's why your blood sugars are pre-diabetic and you're not losing
Yes.
weight. So I do find it very motivating for a lot of people because it does change their behavior. So if they know they're writing it down, they're more likely to reach for the almonds at 4 p.m. than the M&Ms
Right.
because they know, so, oh, she asked me to follow this, so I'm being accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing too is, I find that a lot of people just don't get as much protein as they think that they are. Do you find
Yeah.
that as well?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's either they're not getting enough protein or like you mentioned earlier, it's too many carbs or higher fats because they're trying to make up for the lack of protein.
When you say higher fats because they're not getting enough protein, what do you mean
Yeah.
by that?
So they'll just eat more like nuts and seeds or like some people
Oh,
like more like the fatty meats, right? Like they are not doing the lean meats,
mhm.
things like that. Because that will also lead to inflammation. So you do want to watch
Right.
what you are eating
Okay.
overall. Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that about, like eating nuts and seeds. If you're eating more nuts and you're thinking that that's healthy, you may not realize the fat grams that are in there, which of
Right.
course affects total calories. So maybe you're not in an energy deficit because you're getting so much extra healthy fat. It is healthy, but maybe it's just enough to slow down weight loss.
Right. And I don't want to say that and scare people away from eating nuts and seeds because we
Absolutely.
need that. We
Yeah.
need that for hormone production. We need that. So don't take away from this to like stop eating the nuts and seeds because it's too much fat.
True.
It's if you're doing the macros and you're shooting for a certain goal, that's when you have to watch and balance your intake.
Which I think is going to be a recurring theme is everything should be balanced.
Right.
Right. I love that. So what's your take on people that are vegetarian or vegan, whether it's for personal preference reason, taste reasons, or religious reasons or ethical reasons? How does somebody eat a vegan diet and still get enough protein, for example?
Sure. So definitely, dairy products, unless there's a reason for them to avoid dairy. If it's inflammatory for them, mucus producing for them, then, they would have to avoid that. Soy products, tofu coming from an organic source,
Mhm,
would be a good source of protein for them. Nuts and seeds, again, is a good source of protein for them. So kind of taking a look at different angles and seeing where they can kind of find that source of protein.
mhm. Do you find that most of your patients that are vegan do pretty well with their protein intake, or do you find a lot of people that are not well enough educated to know how to do it right? Because I'm pretty split with my patient population.
Yeah, it's more so the latter. Most people are not getting enough protein when they are doing the vegan diet, and you're missing out on a lot of vitamins. A lot of people kind of miss out on B12, just B vitamins that you would be getting from sources from not being
Yeah.
vegan.
Yeah, B12, carnitine,
Yes,
CoQ10,
yes. Mm-hmm,
those
mm-hmm.
really important nutrients. Yeah, carnitine and CoQ10 are so important for because you're eating muscle meat, but it's good for your own muscle health.
Right,
And if you're
right.
not getting that from an animal source, that may be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So the bottom line is if you're going to eat a vegan diet, just make sure that you really are looking at all of your nutrients and you're getting enough protein and you're getting full nutrient support for the nutrients you may not be getting because you're
right.
lacking meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another challenge. I have particularly found that some middle-aged women coming in, they've gone vegan for whatever reason, and then they approach menopause and they get that natural midsection weight gain that tends to happen from 45 to 50. And maybe they're getting, I don't know, 40 to 50 grams of protein a day. They're getting plenty of carbs and healthy fats and fiber, but they're not getting enough protein. And then
Mm-hmm.
they hit midlife, and it's very, very difficult to lose weight at all. Sometimes they're just completely stuck and they continue to gain. And
Right.
I have to have somewhat of an uncomfortable conversation with them saying, if you're not 100% locked in on the vegan diet, then you might want to reconsider.
Right.
So sometimes that's something. So if anybody's watching this thinking that vegetarian and vegan diet is absolutely the best, it's not necessarily. So
Mhm.
healthy,
Yeah.
clean sources of protein are important too.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. So,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk for a minute on exercise. What's your feeling on cardio, strength training, and then sort of core strengthening, toning, Pilates, yoga type things? What do you typically recommend to your patients who in particular want to lose weight?
Yes. So yes, strength training,
Mhm.
at least 2 to 3 times a week minimum. If they can do it 4 times a week, that's great. Cardio, at least move your body, getting the minimum 10,000 steps a day. That's everybody's been doing it for a while now, and there's watches and rings and all the things you can use to track it. And then, yes, core strengthening is also very important. It's great for just overall bone health, wellness. Strengthening your core is going to help with your limbs. So, like, a lot of people don't realize, like, oh, I started getting sciatica, or oh, I started getting these issues. Well, your core might not be strong enough. So now the extensions from your core are starting to exhibit signs. So definitely do want to do these exercises, but strength training is going to be your number one for weight loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree too. And the way I like to explain it to people is if you're trying to burn fat, one of the best ways to do that is to give a stimulus to your body that it's trying to create muscle. So when your
Mhm.
muscles are growing, then that's an incentive for your body to burn the fat to build the muscle. But if
Right.
you're sitting on the couch all day long, your body has less incentive to burn that fat because it doesn't think you need muscle, and B, it thinks you're just sitting on the couch all day long. So
Right. Exactly.
got to get up and move to build muscle and help your body composition.
hmm
I agree completely. I think that exercise is something everybody needs to do with that combination of cardio and strength training, build muscle.
hmm
Yeah. Okay, so let's dig into the supplements. So essentially what we've done is we've come up with 10 supplements that we think are really important for weight loss.
hmm
So number one is protein. So as we already talked about, I think we both agree that has to be number one because a lot of dieters just don't get enough protein, and then again they lose out on the muscle mass. Then there's less fat burning,
hmm
and it's just so crucial.
hmm
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. And you do want to get protein from your meals, but if you struggle with that, there's protein powders that we can help you pick between to see if there's something that will just help supplement that extra boost that you need for protein.
And I just had a conversation with a patient today who was skipping lunch, and she thought that that was good because then she was eating less calories in the day, skipping
hmm
lunch, and of course she's not getting enough protein in a day. And I said, no, if you don't have time for lunch, like sometimes us professionals don't,
Right.
get a protein shake or a protein bar because it's so
hmm
convenient. Or people that are on the road, if you're in your
hmm
car, don't go to fast food for lunch just because you're starving and you didn't prepare anything. At least
Right.
take a protein bar.
hmm
So a little something. And I've also find that if you're eating protein through the day, you're not going to get those intense cravings. In
hmm
particular, if you go from lunchtime until, say, you're not getting home till 6 or 6:30. If you've skipped lunch, then you're probably going to want to eat everything in the pantry when you get home.
Exactly.
But if you've had protein for breakfast and lunch and then you get home, I think that that protein in your system really helps keep your appetite manageable.
hmm
Yeah,
I completely agree. And a lot of times people also get that afternoon crash because they haven't eaten. They start to
right.
lose focus. So definitely the people who skip lunch, that's an issue. But even the people who eat like a carb heavy lunch and don't get enough protein really feel that crash after about a couple of hours.
Right. Yeah. If you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and potato chips for lunch, don't expect to be awake at 3:30. It's
Right.
not going to happen. Right. Okay, so protein is the first one. So
Mhm.
number two is creatine. So
Mhm.
tell us why you like to recommend creatine for people trying to lose weight.
Yeah, so it definitely is going to work for like helping boost your energy. So, but when you do use creatine, I do recommend that you do like plan a strength training workout or a cardio workout with that because it helps with that muscle building. It helps with that weight loss. So it's going to help when you're pairing it with some kind of activity. So I do like that particular supplement when people are pairing it with
Mhm.
physical activity.
Right, because it's an amino acid that our body uses to create new muscle cells.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and isn't there some recent research too for creatine for brain health?
Yes.
I've seen some studies come through. Of course, everybody's focused on muscle health, but also brain health,
Right.
which I think
Right. Yeah.
is fascinating. So it
Yeah.
maybe can make you stronger and make your brain stronger too.
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Okay. So creatine. So add it to your smoothie. You can even add it into your coffee or your tea, but get that every day and work
Mhm.
out.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Number three is berberine. And
Mhm.
berberine has been around for a while. And you probably know more than I do what plant it comes from.
Mhm.
But berberine has effects on blood sugar metabolism and then also on cholesterol synthesis. So tell me why you would recommend berberine for someone trying to lose weight. What's it going to do?
Yes. So this is kind of going back to earlier in the webinar when we were talking about insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. I use berberine a lot of times in this situation, um, especially if I'm looking at their lipid panel and looking at their labs, and I'm definitely seeing trends of insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. I'm going to use berberine to help manage that insulin sensitivity and the blood sugar, um, and help bring that down. So that's what I use the berberine for, is to help with the insulin resistance piece of it.
And that's what I love about berberine. Of course, it's a natural product, it's not a drug.
Hmm.
What I like to tell people when they don't really understand what insulin resistance is I try to explain to them that essentially, I kind of make a joke of it. I say you and I go to the Chinese restaurant across the street and we both have rice and chicken. Both of us are going to have our blood sugars go up a certain degree. Mine may go up to here, but if yours goes up to here, let's say mine comes back down to normal within an hour and a half, but yours takes 3 hours to come back down. You've had a whole lot more insulin running around in your system. And
Right.
insulin promotes fat deposition or fat gain. And the
Hmm.
only way to really help your system lose that weight and go into fat burning mode is if you're controlling insulin levels. So when you're insulin resistant, you just have lots of insulin in your system too much of the time, which is a powerful incentive for your body to hold on to every ounce of fat that it has. So if
Hmm.
you can adjust your diet and you can take something like berberine, then that helps your insulin work better.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I do love that as a supplement. And then as you mentioned too, I think that the cholesterol benefits are kind of a nice secondary benefit. So if your blood cholesterol's run a little bit high, berberine can help that as well.
Hmm. Yes, it definitely helps with the cholesterol. And then also, it does have some effects on blood pressure. Again, it's not huge, but it can help with blood pressure as well.
Right. So like the whole metabolic syndrome profile.
Exactly.
Okay, love it. I love it when plants can help us and we don't have to take a drug. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that's not really talked about a whole lot, is mushroom coffee and mushroom extracts. Of course, mushroom coffee has kind of become popular in recent years.
Hmm.
And mushroom extracts. And what's interesting is that there was actually a study done on mice from 2015 that showed a mushroom extract. These mice that were fed a high fat diet, the ones that were on the mushroom extract, they actually had less weight gain than the mice that were not treated. And the scientists were thinking that it has to do with microbiome changes and gut health. So
Hmm.
tell me why that would be a connection there that would affect weight.
Right. So the mushrooms have a particular component in them, the beta glucans, that really act as like prebiotics for your microbiome. So like prebiotics, they feed the good bacteria. Um, so using the mushrooms can help with the inflammation from a gut perspective. But they also work on helping with increasing energy levels, brain, like reducing brain fog, mental clarity. So they've been really popular lately. I've a lot more people have been asking me about them and using them on in their routine. And the coffee is a great way to get that in.
Mhm. Yeah, mushroom coffee. It's really fascinating that you can drink your mushrooms in the morning. I've had a few
Yeah.
patients say that they didn't particularly care for the taste, but they just blended it 50-50 with their coffee. And
Yeah, yeah. It's not always the best tasting, is the same feedback I've received. But it's also a nice way to not have to take another supplement per se, right? You could just drink a,
right,
your coffee and get it in that way.
right. Or you can always kind of do the approach where you doctor it up a little, where you put a little bit of cocoa in
Yeah.
and some stevia and blend that up. That's
Mhm.
kind of a way to give it a little bit of flavor. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've been throwing it in my smoothies. When I do my protein powder, I'll throw the mushroom powder blend in there.
right. Right. Just add it to your smoothie. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's again, it's so cool to me that these plants that are put on this earth for us to use have so many healing properties and can really help us overcome some of the issues that we have living in this modern world that's full of toxins and stress. But
Oh
plants
yeah.
help us.
Oh
It's
yeah.
awesome. Okay, so mushrooms. All right, so let's go to number 5 would be adrenal adaptogens. So tell us what an adrenal adaptogen is and what it can help do for us.
Yeah, so these are actually some of my favorite supplements because just like you alluded a few minutes ago, the high stress environment that we live in now, and living in this modern world, especially with technology and just our brains being on all the time. So adaptogens are like herbs, basically like rhodiola, ginseng, ashwagandha, things like that. So what an adaptogen does is it helps your body adapt. So if your stress is high, it'll help kind of calm you down. If your stress is low, it'll or if you're kind of feeling low, like the adrenal fatigue picture, which is technically HPA axis dysregulation.
Right. Yeah.
But it'll help kind of boost your energy
So if
levels.
you're burned out, in other words.
Burned out, yes,
Right.
yes. So it'll help boost your energy levels. So I really like the adaptogens and using those on a daily basis. And a lot of my patients, because most of us are stressed out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking too is if your cortisols are high because you're stressed so much, then cortisol in and of itself can raise your blood sugar, which can
Yes.
raise insulin, which can make it harder for you to lose weight.
Yes.
If you can bring the cortisols down from a high level to a normal level,
Mhm.
then that in and of itself could help you lose weight.
Right,
Plus,
right,
you're not stressed out and reaching for the Doritos,
right.
so you're going to be making those better choices if your brain is in a better place.
Right. And that's the other piece is the cortisol and the insulin resistance. Cortisol and insulin are tied together. And so if your cortisol is too high, then again, like you mentioned, your body will start producing more insulin, which then leads to that fat deposits and things that we alluded to earlier. And the other piece of that is the adaptogens help with the cortisol piece, which will help people sleep better.
Oh
So
yeah.
sleep
Sleep.
is a huge part of the weight loss journey, and a lot of people are not sleeping well, and needing a little help by using some adaptogens, things like that can definitely help with reducing those cortisol levels and helping with the weight loss management.
Right, right. That's interesting. Well, and actually that kind of leads into the next one is
Mhm.
we'll say the next one is going to be melatonin
Yeah.
because of the sleep issue. And
Mhm.
that's so true because a lot of people don't make that connection. They don't think that sleep has anything to do with their metabolism or how they, what their weight is, the body composition. But if you're not getting at least 6, if not 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night, and that's deep restorative sleep with
Right.
non-REM and the REM phases, then your body thinks that it's going through some high stress time and it's
Mhm.
not going to want to give up its stored energy. because it
Right.
just thinks, uh-oh, this is time of war. We got to be on guard and ready. And, we're not allowed to sleep 8 hours a night. So hold on to the energy. So anything that you can do to get that deep restorative sleep, I think can
Mhm.
help. So, and I find melatonin often helpful, not always, because not
Right.
everybody's low in melatonin. And certainly there's other supplements that may work, L-theanine and magnesium and some other things.
Hmm.
Do you have
Hmm.
do you have any tips for people if they haven't tried melatonin and they want to? Is there any advice that you give people about how much and what form to take?
I would definitely start with like a very low dose. I think the lowest I've seen is about 1 milligram.
Mhm.
Um, and usually I try to stay away from gummies because they're kind of filled with additives and sugars or fake sugars or whatnot. So like either a lozenge or a capsule is a good way to start. If there might be powder versions out there, but that would be hard to control the dosage on that. So I think just like a capsule or a lozenge would be a good
So
one to start.
start at 1 milligram and then just work your way up if you need
Hmm.
to. Okay.
Hmm.
I do find it interesting that there's been some studies using high dose melatonin for cancer survivors,
Hmm.
which is not what we're talking about here. But
Right.
those studies have shown that if you use high doses for that purpose, it is very safe and there's no significant issues for
Hmm.
a lot of people. So if you do need to go up to 3 milligrams or 5 milligrams of melatonin, then that's certainly safe and worth trying.
Right. And just one other piece I want to add about melatonin. Melatonin is actually produced in the gut. So a lot of people, again, we're kind of going back to that, what we were talking about earlier is like gut inflammation, gut health, microbiome, kind of working on those things may help your body naturally start producing melatonin on its own.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So pay attention to gut health because that's related to the brain, the gut-brain
Hmm.
connection.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So good. So good. Okay. All right. So next, number 7 is green tea extract, EGCG. And
Hmm.
I think that this is worth mentioning. Not that it's a silver bullet or anything,
Hmm.
but I personally love to have a cup of green tea in the afternoon. I've done that for years because it's got a little theanine, a little caffeine. It's not like having a cup of coffee,
Hmm.
but it helps with brain focus. But there is some data that shows that the EGCG component of green tea does boost metabolism a bit.
Hmm.
So what's your experience with green tea or EGCG in and of itself?
Yeah, so just like you said, it helps with like focus. It also works with like some of the hormone detox pathways in the liver.
Sure.
So if there is kind of an inflammation coming from like a hormonal perspective, it helps support that pathway so that could kind of help with the weight loss from a
Okay.
hormonal perspective. Hmm.
Maybe if you're perimenopausal and maybe if you have times that you're estrogen dominant,
Hmm.
or maybe mid-cycle you get the surge of estrogens and you feel kind of fat and puffy and bloated,
Right.
then the EGCG can help with some of the other nutritional strategies to help detox and balance the hormones naturally.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, and that's a big piece of it. And estrogen dominance again is linked with insulin resistance. So kind of we're seeing trends here. We're talking about very similar
Mhm.
things throughout the webinar, and so
Yeah,
it.
they're all related.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I'll just say to anybody, if you like green tea, have a cup of green tea every afternoon. Helps your metabolism.
Mhm.
Okay. And then number 8 would be probiotics, as we've also talked about with gut health. But explain to people what acromantia is, and why that would be used for weight loss.
So for akkermansia, it is again a probiotic. How does it help with weight loss? So one of the things you can test for akkermansia actually through the GI map. So you can see if you're high or low or okay on it. But it does help with the insulin sensitivity piece. Um, and then also helps with gut inflammation. So kind of just going back to all the things we were talking about before with looking at gut health, looking at the microbiome, supporting it where it needs to be supported. And I have seen a link with like using GLPs and supporting it with acromantia to really fuel the weight loss process, which we'll touch on here in a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, I find it interesting that acromantia does have some data for weight loss, like it's correlated with leanness, but that makes sense. If you're improving your microbiome and you're also improving insulin sensitivity, it makes sense.
Hmm.
So, and there are some probiotics that are just acromantia,
Hmm.
which those are more of what we're talking about here. But certainly, if you have significant digestive issues, you may also benefit from a more broad-based probiotic that has a number of different strains in it. So that's why you see a natural medicine practitioner like one of us, and we can guide you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is acromantia. So number 9 is going to be L-carnitine. So tell me about L-carnitine and why we would use that and how that might help us lose weight.
Yes, so L-carnitine is again one of those amino acids. It really helps your mitochondria. So that's your cells inside your cells. It's the powerhouse. It helps your cells produce energy. So it's one of the cofactors, one of the ingredients needed for your body to make energy. And when you have the energy, you start burning fuel, you start burning fat, you start burning things. And if you have a lot of fat and you have the right tools, the right ingredients to help burn that off, L-carnitine is one of those that I use for that.
Love that. So it's kind of like fuel in the engine to burn the fat.
Hmm.
So it helps your system burn the fat the way that it could. So it helps that process.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. All right. Number 10. Number 10 has to be fiber. So yeah, so fiber, obviously, we all know that we probably don't get enough fiber and we should eat more. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's pretty obvious that the connection here is that fiber feeds the gut and the microbiome. But fiber really does help with appetite too. A lot of times people forget that. That's kind of the basics of fiber. If you're
Hmm.
consuming enough fiber and enough water, you're just going to be fuller for longer, and then you're not going to be, starving when it comes time to the next meal.
Right.
Is that sort of your perspective on fiber?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because a lot of times, you'll eat it. So a lot of times people will get the protein and they'll get the carb or the salad, small portion or whatever, but it's not enough fiber. Like maybe you need a salad with like chickpeas or bean, a different type of bean, to kind of mix in with it and really
Not
get.
just lettuce.
Yeah, because a lot of times it may not be filling enough from a fiber perspective. So I like to kind of say, like, if your body can tolerate it, you can mix in some of these things to get more fiber and keep you full longer. And then
Mhm.
you're not reaching for the bag of chips at 2 p.m. or, whatever it is, because now you're in the middle of a meeting and you're really hungry all of a sudden.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you do eat potato chips in the middle of the afternoon, there's zero fiber in that. And of course, it just shoots
Mhm.
up your blood sugar. But,
Mhm.
if you were to eat, just say a couple spoonfuls of hummus, you've got some
Mhm.
fiber in that.
Right.
Or the handful of nuts that we originally talked about, there's some fiber there. That is
Yes.
just going to it's going to expand your stomach and you're just going to feel full and it's going to satisfy those cravings so much better than an empty calorie snack like potato chips.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hmm.
So we're picking up potato chips and M&Ms, but for a reason, not
Yeah.
healthy.
Right, right.
Okay. So definitely work on getting fiber. And of course, I'm sure you say the same thing that I do. You would rather people eat their fiber through the day. But if there's times that you can't get fiber that way, certainly fiber supplements can help. It's
Yes.
just tough to get a lot of fiber in a powder or a pill. Even the pills are just such a small amount of fiber per pill. You'd have
Hmm.
to take a whole handful to equal having like white bean sausage soup, the amount of
Right,
fiber you would
right,
get from that.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so just wanted to talk to a little for a moment on the GLPs because, of course, that's what everybody wants to know. What about these GLPs, at least for those people that have not yet been on them? The GLP medications certainly do have a place in our armamentarium. I think we would all agree that we would rather people not have to go on them simply because if you can do it with adjusting your lifestyle and taking supplements, it's easier and it's certainly cheaper, arguably safer, no risk of side effects. I think the biggest problem that I have with the GLPs is that once people go on them, it's very difficult to get off, at least within a couple of years.
Mhm.
So majority of my patients that are on a GLP, they can do well and get the weight off, but then we end up having to keep them on a maintenance dose for a period of time after. And we don't even know if that's going to be lifelong. Is 3 years enough? Is 5 years enough? 10 years? Or are you going to stay on these things, till we can't get them anymore? So all the GLPs they're good. There's a couple things, and what's I find interesting is that I've seen studies for lemon verbena. I have heard actually, does it stimulate your own natural GLP-1, or is that what it does? It creates your body makes more of your own GLP?
Yes, it encourages your body to make your own
That's the
GLP.
term.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. So lemon verbena has been used. I don't think it's got great results, but it's something.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then the other product that has kind of created some buzz is called Calocurb. That's the name of it, the brand name, and it comes from New Zealand bitter hops.
Hmm.
And that one I have a little bit of experience with, and I don't think it's as good as the GLP injections, but I have had some people notice some modest reduction in their appetite. So
Yes.
I think that one's interesting too. Have you had some experience with that one?
Just very little, and again, there's been a few patients who have done well on it. So just depending on the patient, I think a lot of it has to do with the microbiome health and getting that aligned and making sure like the inflammation is down, and then the calocarb really helps support
That's
after.
true because it hits those receptors along your intestinal tract
Hmm.
so that your intestine then says, okay, time to make more GLP. But if your
Yeah.
intestine is inflamed, it may not work as well.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, there's just no getting away from this gut health thing, is there?
No.
So important.
Key. It's the key. Yep.
It is. It is. Okay. All right. So I think that, as we've gone through all these supplements, this is all really, really good information. I think there's a lot of people that are going to enjoy listening to this.
Hmm.
Um, Couple things that I just wanted to bring out that I think are important to keep in mind as we're zooming out is the first thing is I always tell my patients, try not to focus on that number in the scale.
Hmm.
And what we want to look at is body composition. And so in our office, we do offer body composition analysis. So we're looking at the lean mass and the fat mass and water. And so let's just say, you were always 125 pounds up until your 40s, and now you're 135. And you're like, I just have to get back down to 125. It's just not natural for me to 135. Well, your body mass index may be perfect. Your body composition may be perfect, but you're just fixated on this idea of what the scale said when you were younger. And I find that women tend to fall into that trap of focusing on the number and the scale instead of how healthy are you and how well are your clothes fitting and can you do what you need to do? So how do you handle that question for women when they say, "But I've always been X number of pounds and that I really want to get down to that number." What do you tell them?
Yes, so I always say not to stress about the numbers exactly, because as we age, hormones shift, inflammation increases, gut microbiome definitely changes. Leaky gut is something that happens with the aging process, and the gut, if you're not familiar. I'm sure many people are familiar and they've heard the term, but leaky gut is just weakening of the intestinal barrier, inflammation of the intestinal barrier. So you just, work with your body, be gentle with yourself as you work through the process. But you may not be 125 like you were, even 5 years ago.
And give yourself grace. Don't be
Hmm.
so hard on yourself.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And that comes in a lot when I have people on GLP medications because they have this goal because, we ask them, what's your goal? And
Right.
and oftentimes we can't get to that actual goal. We get within 10 pounds. And then
Hmm.
you just have to sort of shift expectations and look at it in terms of how healthy are you and can you do everything you need to do? Maybe you
Hmm.
can't fit into the size 2 bikini anymore, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because if you did lose all that weight, you may not be as healthy and may lose muscle to do it.
Hmm.
And that's the other thing that we find that dieters, whether they're on medication or just doing it on their own, if they're losing muscle, you're going to be worse off than if you were 10 pounds heavier. So that's
Right.
just a side effect we're not willing to accept. Yeah.
Exactly. Hmm.
And then, as you mentioned too, is just not discounting some of those other issues. Like, for example, oh yeah, I have irritable bowel. Like, what do you mean you have it? Oh yeah, I've always had that. Somebody who either has a bowel movement once a week, or maybe they go 5 times a day and they're never formed, and they just think that's normal because that's what they have the diagnosis. I have irritable bowel, and it's on their chart. That's
Right.
not normal. Don't accept it. And maybe dig into that. And maybe it's a gluten sensitivity or dairy, or it could be something else, but it could potentially be something that you can improve on, and then everything else starts to fall into place.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely. Hmm.
right. And I would just kind of wrap up with my overall encouragement to people that are trying to lose weight is to say, set reasonable goals and do everything that you can do, but don't be hard on yourself if life throws you a curveball. So
Hmm.
if you go through something really stressful and then suddenly you're stress eating, it's okay. You're not going to continue that behavior forever, but don't worry about trying to lose weight when that happens. Just do the best you can. And then there will be another season when you can really pour your heart and soul into it and you can do everything you need to do. And you can't be. I think people are just really hard on themselves, and especially as women, our body image is so tied into weight. That's just our culture. And
Yeah.
women think that if I'm fat, I'm ugly, and I'm not sexy, I'm not desirable, no one wants to be around me, and that's so not true.
Right.
But I think there's a challenge there, but an opportunity to have a really good attitude about weight and to do it in a healthy way so that you don't add to your stress.
Right, right. And that's one thing to remember, right? The body is adaptable. So, yes, there are going to be periods where there's going to be high stress. You're going to fall off the wagon. You're going to probably stress eat something that you were like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But just reminding yourself, giving yourself grace and reminding yourself to get back on that wagon and just continuing the process. One cheat meal or one piece of cake emotionally eaten is not going to make a big change in the grand scheme of things. But if this is continuously happening, then definitely reach out, get some support. We're here for you guys. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great message. Okay.
mhm.
Well, thanks so much, Monica, for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. And I know this is a lot of really good information.
Yeah,
If anybody has any questions or interested in some of our services, of course, we do a lot of hormone management, functional medicine. Monica is great with all of this approach with gut health. So if you think you have gut issues or you think you have systemic inflammation and those things might be impairing your ability to lose weight, give us a call. We can do functional testing. We can check for nutrients, put you on a customized supplement regimen. So we are here for you to do anything that we can do to help you in your weight loss journey because you can get the weight off and
yeah.
we're here to help support you. So thanks everybody for joining us and we'll look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thank you.
Bye.